Gregory, welcome to the show, man.
Thanks for having me, Justin. Good to
Yeah,
be
I'm
here.
excited about this conversation. I don't even know how we connected. I think there's a mutual friend from Instagram sharing something out, and we started following each other. And I was like, the back of my head, I was like, I saw your content. I'm like, I got to get him on the show. I love what he talks about. I love what he's putting out there. And then finally, I'm like, okay, let me just message him. And so now here we are, man. I'm excited to dive into your story. But why don't we start out with who is Greg today, and then we'll break down how you got there.
Yeah, so I'm a husband, a father, an avid musician, lover of terrible jokes and puns. I spend most of my professional time thinking about, writing about, speaking about the experiences people create through the work that they do. So if you're a leader, the way that you build the work experience for your people or for your company. If you're an employee or a solo contributor, the way that you create experiences for your customers, for your colleagues, for your leadership in the organization. And I do that all through the lens of my experience working at piano bars. So our mission every night wasn't just to play requests and make as much money as we could through tips. It was to create the type of experience for patrons that made them want to come back again and again and again. Because while I could probably get, 20 or 50 or $100 out of you that night if I really sort of worked for it, I could get thousands of dollars from my patrons over the course of a year or my tenure at that bar if I just got them to come back again. And there were skills that we learned that I was taught by other mentors working at different piano bars that we used to create that type of experience. And what I've learned is that the business world can learn a lot from the world of entertainment and vice versa. There's a lot of entertainers I speak with that don't understand how to negotiate for their value or professionalism and sort of executive acumen. But in the business world, when we sort of get out of the cubicle, we can learn a lot from this piano bar, especially from this approach we took at piano bars to creating experiences. And so that's what I do with my time.
Yeah, and I've been to a couple piano bars in my lifetime, and it is 100% the most engaged bar I've ever seen. Whether it be, I've seen the karaoke bars, I've seen the live band bars, I've seen all of that stuff. I've seen the one guy with a guitar bar. The piano bars, without a doubt, is the most engaged I've ever seen. And so obviously the lessons that you took from there that you also now teach into the corporate world and so on, it's absolutely life-changing. But what I want to say is I love that you use the word, to create an experience, the experience and what you're creating for people. Because I host a live event for entrepreneurs every year. And my whole thing is like, I want to create an experience where they go, I want to come back. Right. It's not just about what is the speaker saying. It's not just about whatever. It's the entire thing that you're putting into it for them to go, this was a great experience. Why is that such an important piece that you learned from the piano bar that you said, oh, wait, hold on. This means so much more outside of the bar as well.
Well, let's take an example that you just mentioned, right? It's a great example. In the world of bars, like if you and I were to go out in Philly and just visit 10 random bars, there's a good bet that all of them have music in some form, right? They may have Mega Touch or somebody's, rocking their Spotify playlist behind the bar. They might have a guitar player or a live band. You might even run into a karaoke bar. But a piano bar is the only bar where the audience is going to pick 100% of the playlist. Now, you might be thinking, well, Greg, wait, karaoke, the audience is picking 100% of the playlist too. And here's the beautiful differentiator between those two experiences. Karaoke is very much a look at me experience. So I pick the song, I'm going to sing the song, watch me, aren't I amazing? When the patrons pick a song at the piano bar, it's being performed by a live musician, but the patron is still engaged. That's not the word I want to use. The patron is still a collaborator in that. But instead of look at me, it becomes look what we created, look what we did together. And that is so much more like work than a karaoke bar because it truly is a look what we did together. At the piano bar, you don't have to have a music degree or know how to play an instrument to pick a great song. But what you do kind of need is a piano player, a skilled musician, to help facilitate the experience. And the same is true at work. Like you don't have to have an MBA to come up with a great idea, the next great idea for a business. But you do need a skilled facilitator. And that's where this collaboration between the line level employee and the leadership really comes into play. And that's why I think it's so relevant to use this piano bar analogy, because it's not look at me. We're all sick of look at me. It's
Yeah.
look what we can do together.
I love that. I love the way you broke that down. I'm always fascinated by how people end up where they are, right? So how did you get into being a piano bar performer at such a high level? Like, what was it? Music first, tried to be a rock star, got into the piano bar. Like, how'd you end up there?
I failed at a lot of things. First and foremost, being a rock star. I had this dream of just ditching college after my freshman year, moving out to LA and waiting tables, building a band. And I just didn't. And so sophomore year came and I sort of fell more and more out of love with my course of study, which was actually music education. I thought I wanted to be a music teacher. But the more I learned about the world of education and the sort of professional side of being a teacher, not what I saw as a student, I thought, man, this doesn't feel like it's right for me. I wanted more freedom and control over my day. And certainly teachers don't have a lot of freedom or control over their day. It's governed by the class bell and the class schedule. So as I wound up graduating college with this hodgepodge degree of philosophy, psychology, and music, I fell into a sales gig. And while the money was nice, I didn't really feel passionate about what I was doing. And it felt like I was putting on a costume every morning when I put on my suit and tie. I was acting like a professional, but I wanted something that felt like I was able to be me. And that's when the piano bar presented itself. I had a friend that invited me to a grand opening of a piano bar. Her friend's father was the one opening it. And they found out that I was a piano player. And after an hour or two, they said, "Hey, Greg, do you want to come up and play a song?" And I was like, "No, no, yes, of course I do." And so I played 3 songs. And at the end of the night, her dad offered me a job. And that put me on this path to working nights and weekends at piano bars all over the world. And during the day, I had my day job in sales. So fast forward, how'd I get from piano bars to speaking?
That's where I was going next. So yeah.
In 2015, I had been doing both, right? Speaking during the day as a salesperson, singing at night as a piano bar performer, and giving my voice no rest. And I really wasn't caring for my voice the way a professional voice user should have. So I found myself in this situation in 2015 where my vocal cords were so badly abused and misused that they gave out. Like, literally before a performance was about to start, I tried to sing my first song and just nothing.
Wow.
So I went to an ENT, a specialist for the voice, and they said, your vocal cords are so badly damaged, you've got about 2 weeks to 2 months before the damage is irreversible, and you'll lose complete loss of vocal function, meaning I would not be able to sing or speak. And they said, we think your singing voice is toast, but we do believe we could save your speaking voice so you could go back to your sales job at least and, keep your income, but you need to go into surgery. So I was actually more upset that I wasn't going to be able to sing than that I would need surgery. But I went into the OR, had the surgery. That revealed the need for another surgery and then another. And over the course of the next 7 years, I had had 15 surgeries to repair and rebuild my vocal cords. And along the way, I spent 3 months in complete silence while the vocal cords healed. I spent hundreds of hours working with speech therapy teams and eventually a singing therapist, and was able to build my voice back to a point where I could sing a little bit and speak a little bit. And I thought maybe I'd start performing at piano bars. And that was kind of right as the pandemic shut every live performance venue. So the wind was really knocked out of my sails. I doubled down on this opportunity to have a speaking career while at the same time opening a virtual piano bar. So I thought I'll just perform online and entertain people. And it was losing my voice, ironically, that enabled me to find it and apply it to something that I was truly passionate about.
I love it. And you also started you decided to launch a speaking business during 2020 when the world was shut down, which is always a crazy thing. But that gave you the time to sit and think, right? Like, I could never imagine being silent for, how long did you say? 3 months?
3 months.
Yeah. Like I couldn't even imagine the way to communicate. What did that do to you mentally during that time?
I became incredibly depressed. So I don't often share this story, but I was probably 3 or 4 surgeries in, and I was still trying to hack my way through the day job. They were very kind and accommodating with me, and this at the time kind of a disability that I had because I couldn't use my voice. But the truth was, and everybody knew, I just, you can't hang. If you can't speak, you really can't sell. And so I knew it, everybody else knew it. And I was standing there on the subway platform waiting to take the subway into work and feeling like I was out of choices, out of options. And I thought I may as well just step in front of the subway instead of get into it. And that sent me on a path towards getting some help and sort of finding my way again. And on that path, I wound up at a Tony Robbins event. Mm. And at that Tony Robbins event, it was a cool event. I mean, I changed a lot. Certainly my perspective on things changed a lot, but it was someone I met there who changed everything for me. And her name was Svetlana. And we're still in touch to this day. So Svetlana and I were sat next to each other because it's open seating. You kind of sit wherever you want. And struck up a conversation on one of the breaks while waiting in the concessions line. And she initially started the conversation by turning to me and asking how many of these events I'd been to. And I kind of wanted to save and conserve my voice because you're in a loud arena and there's a lot going on and these are long days. And so I just said, this is my first one. What about you? And she goes, well, this is my 15th. Oh. And it might not have been, I always mess up how many, but it was a lot. It was enough that I went, oh, like what? Wow. Like why so many?
Yeah.
And she started explaining her story and how she got to the US from Russia and all of the trials and tribulations she'd gone through to be there in that moment with me. And so at the end of her sort of story, my jaw's on the floor, just blown away by what this woman's been through. And she goes, what about you? What's your story? And I'm like, lady, no, you don't want to know it. It doesn't matter. Like, that was awesome. She goes, no. Come on, tell me what brought you here? It's your first time. Why are you here? And I've always, Justin, been a big proponent of strangers can be your best asset when you're feeling lost. You know, if you're willing to be vulnerable and open up to the right stranger, they often give you unbiased advice because they have no emotional stake in the outcome. And so I just thought this might be a good person to open up to. And after 20 minutes of conversation, she just looks at me and goes, you don't get it, do you? I said, get what? She's like, well, you're talking about your life in buckets, like this bucket for entertainment, this bucket for sales, this bucket for intellectual curiosity, and on and on. She goes, what would happen if you put all those together? I was like, I don't know. And she took me by the shoulder and sort of pointed towards the inside of the arena where the stage was, where Tony was doing the program from. And she goes, I think that's what you could be doing. And it was one of those, yeah, moments for me in life. And that conversation changed everything.
Yeah. And obviously you grabbed the bull by the horns and you've built this very successful speaking business for yourself. And you do it in such an engaging way. I want to talk a little bit about some of the frameworks that you talk about, because I think it's important for people to hear what you teach these organizations and individuals in order to engage, each other, in order to, as you put it, put on that encore performance every day, to have people be excited to come back, to have your customers to be excited to buy again, to do all these things. What did you learn as, a performer at a piano bar that you now go, okay, I can take this and put this into the corporate space and it can change how everybody interacts? What was the biggest takeaway that you can kind of plug and play?
Well, I think it starts with understanding the audience. And in a large piano bar, you've got a room full of a few hundred people, let's say. In a perfect world, I would get to know something about each of them, like an icebreaker or a conversation. And in a way, I do when they put their request up on the piano. But they haven't come to see Greg Offner. It's not like a Taylor Swift concert where there's already that immediate trust and buy-in and like, hey, buckle up, this is going to be great because we made the decision to go see Taylor Swift. They're coming to the piano bar. So it's really my responsibility. And one of the key attributes that makes a piano bar performer great, musicality is fine, but you got to be able to read the room. And businesses spend millions of dollars each year trying to read the room. They use Myers-Briggs and the predictive index and all these other personality quizzes and questionnaires that they give people. And it does return a lot of data on the person that's working for you, but it's not necessarily actionable. Like, we live in a society right now where information is actually becoming worthless because it's ubiquitous. It's everywhere. It's the application of that information that's valuable. And at the piano bar, we had to very quickly assess and then apply what we learned about our audience. And so in the piano bar world, there are these archetypes that you may hear performers talk about, audience archetypes. And there's three of them pretty much you'll run into in every large group. I call them keepers, leapers, and sleepers. And so the keepers are your piano bar regulars. Like in the business world, they're the people who love what they do, who they do it with, who they do it for. Like it's not a job, it's not a career, it's a calling for them. And so at the piano bar, these keepers are the folks who will Google the best piano bar in a city that they're taking a vacation to. Like they're buckled in, they know the drill, they're ready to make it a great night. And so it's my job to just remove any obstacles that they might have to making it a great night. The leapers are the bachelorette parties, the bachelor parties. Like they're there because they heard it's a kick-ass time and they want to have a great time, but they're probably hopping to dinner afterwards, or they're coming from dinner and then they're bar hopping after the piano bar. Like we are not the final destination. We're a stop along the way. And there's ways to figure that out. A lot of times it's the bachelorette sash or the birthday cake you see brought out. But I mean, you can sense this energy from a group. And similarly in the workplace, leapers are the type of employee who doesn't see this as their final destination. Like they're here to build career capital. And our job as leaders in the workplace is to help them build that capital, because in return, they're going to engage with what our organization needs. They're going to be a high performing individual because they want those accolades to build their resume to get to the next place. But too often what I see are leaders who know that talent is hard to come by, try to convince them, these leapers, to stay. Like, this is the best place. Why would you ever want to leave? I call it organizational guilt. And we've got to get rid of this organizational guilt and instead help the leapers leap. And same thing at the piano bar. Like the worst thing that I started doing as a piano performer was trying to devise strategies to make these tables stay longer. Like I'd take a request, I'd put the tip in the tip jar, and I'd sort of put the request off to the side and wait a little bit and see if I could get them to stay 5, 10, 15 minutes longer because they're having fun. And so I'm having fun. And who doesn't love that? Well, they didn't love that because they're not getting what they came for. Same thing in the workplace. If you're not helping the leaper develop, build their career capital, and ultimately helping them make that next move, they're going to disengage and in some cases actively rebel and become a liability. Yeah. And then last are the sleepers. And this is a really interesting group because in the workplace and in the piano bar, nobody shows up by accident. Like nobody wakes up at a piano bar. I mean, maybe in New Orleans, you know, like, oh, how do we get in this piano bar? But like you make a decision to walk in the door, you pay the cover, and at work, you apply for the job, you go through an interview process. Everybody starts out engaged. So this myth that somebody's lazy or they just don't care. No. They cared enough to take the job. And they took the job because at some point they thought you, the employer, or me at the piano bar, you had the ability to give them the type of experience they wanted. And then somewhere along the way, they stopped believing that you did or could or would. And so they disengage. And so really the truth about sleepers at the piano bar, at the workplace, or in life is that they're just a leaper or a keeper who hasn't been asked the right question by somebody in charge. And so our job at the piano bar, when we saw a sleeper, hopefully not actually sleeping, but sort of metaphorically, they're not participating, they're not filling out request slips, they're just kind of sitting there like, was on our break to go out and chat with people in the audience, specifically those people, and just find out, hey, what brought you into the piano bar tonight? What can I do to make this experience an 11 out of 10 for you? And we'd find when we came back from break that those sleepers would have magically changed into participants. And the same thing happens in the workplace. That's really all it takes. It's that simple to engage a sleeper, is a conversation with them. Why are you here? You could be anywhere. You could apply for any job. You could take any position, but you're here. So like, help me understand why. What is it you want from this experience? And sometimes we determine what they want is a different experience. So now they're a leaper. Let's help them make the leap. So those archetypes are incredibly valuable in the business world. They're actionable. They come from the piano bar. And then at the risk of going too long about this, because obviously I wrote a book, I do a keynote on this, I could talk for a while. The idea that you brought up earlier, between karaoke bars and piano bars, they both have audience contribution. People want to be a contributor, not told what their part is. They want to have a hand in designing that part. That's part of what makes the piano bar so engaging, is that folks get to choose the set list. I help curate when the song comes up, and my skills are needed to make the song come alive, but so is that in the workplace. Employees want their ideas to be incorporated into the organization, and leadership has the skills and the timeline to do that. And so what's important is communication. Like if somebody brings up a song that's a little slow for the moment, like maybe we're in the 11 o'clock to 12:30 hour, right? So you're hitting that midnight point in time. You want to keep everybody highly energized, keep the energy up, keep them visiting the bar. It's not the time for a slow ballad. Same thing at work. You might have a great idea, but just right now, Q1, Q2, whatever, like it's not the right time. Rather than just ignore the request or ignore the suggestion at work, I tell the audience, hey, just got a request for Adele, nice little slow song here. We're going to get to that a little later. We got some high energy stuff coming up next, but we'll get to the Adele song. Do that at work. I just did a piece today on employee engagement surveys, and how if an employee gives you a suggestion and you don't act on it, it's even worse than not asking for their suggestion in the first place. So if an employee brings you an idea and it's not the right time of year, it's not the right time season for the business, just tell them and explain that to them. They walk away with more knowledge. They feel like they were seen, heard, and that their idea is valued, and they stay engaged. They look for opportunities. Now that they know what season of the business it is, I can look for different opportunities that align with our goals. So those are two really powerful ones, Justin.
Yeah, it's great. And so, what I'm hearing is obviously you in that role, and now what you're teaching is really about like reading the people and engaging with them and asking them what they want. The major issue with that is a lot of that starts with self-awareness. You can't be the person up there on the stage and noticing what's happening around them unless you're aware of yourself, how you would react, why you are that way. A lot of CEOs, a lot of entrepreneurs aren't overly self-aware, right? So they let's go into the entrepreneur world. They build a product, whether it be an online course or a coaching thing or whatever, and they're like, nobody's buying. Why is nobody buying? This is the greatest thing I ever made. Why is nobody buying in, right? Just like the corporate world. Hey, we're doing this, but why are my employees not buying in? It's because they're not self-aware. How can somebody look at themselves first in order to step out of their own way and then go, oh, hey, there's a sleeper here. We need to wake them up.
When you're saying they're not buying, are you talking about they're not buying the product itself?
They're not buying the product themselves.
The market isn't buying the product that they've come up with? Or are you talking about employees that they've tried to hire aren't buying the vision?
Both, right? So in the entrepreneur world, if I create an online product for my audience that is already following me and nobody's buying it, a lot of it is because I don't ask the questions to the people who would be potentially buying it. Like, hey, what do you want? I just designed this thing because I thought it was good for me. In the corporate world, the CEO goes, this is the direction we're going. This is what I believe in. This is what I believe to be true. And every employee can go, well, that's a stupid idea. And they're not bought in. It's because they didn't engage. But that starts with that idea of self-awareness. Like you have to be aware enough and humble enough to go, well, let me ask you guys what we should be doing.
Well, I think there's part of the answer is the humility factor, that being willing or open to the idea that you don't know everything. And I think the beauty of an organization to me is it comes about because there's some goal that we can't do on our own. I mean, I think anybody, just pure economics, anybody who could keep 100% of the profit probably would. Why hire somebody else and now you have to divvy things up? So by virtue of creating an organization, you've sort of said, this is something we can do together. So I think there has to be a modicum of self-awareness there to even start a company to realize like this is something we can't do together. Now, if you're sticking with like a single person business, like creating an online offering, the phrase a brilliant solution in search of a problem is what comes to mind. That by not understanding what the problem is you're really solving for, you've got this product that nobody has said they wanted. And so at the piano bar, that's where that question for a sleeper comes in. Like, I think the problem I'm solving for, let's come at this another way. At the piano bar, the problem I'm solving for is not you want to hear Only the Good Die Young. You could go on YouTube and watch Billy Joel play it. You could pull up Spotify. There's a bajillion ways that you could hear that song. You've come to the piano bar because you want to have an experience. Now, part of that experience might include hearing the song Only the Good Die Young, but I have to realize that my role there is not, look at me, the Greg Offner show. I'm a facilitator of an experience. And so whether you're creating an online product, you're leading a team, you are a facilitator of an experience. And what many organizations are struggling with, some of which I get the pleasure of working with, is that they have not thought of their employees as a customer. Employees are buying your employment experience every day. And that is a product that a company has to be intentional in developing and adding version 2.0 and 3.0. And if the company is not iterating that employee experience, that becomes stale. The employee takes that staleness to the front line, transmits it to the customer. The customer goes, God, this company is stale. It all starts with the employee experience if you're going to have an organization. Yes, the product has to be fresh too. And companies spend lots of money each year doing market analyses and customer feedback. And they always put that stuff into practice. But again, back to that employee engagement survey, if we're not putting that into practice, we're letting old versions of the employee experience dictate the new version we want of our company.
No, I love that. And so it's funny, you mentioned Billy Joel. Every time I've been at a piano bar, of course, some Billy Joel song comes up in some way, shape, or form. Piano Man, Only the Good Die Young, whatever the case may be. How do you, as an artist, how did you learn how to play all these songs? I'm always just enamored when I'm there to be like, how do they know how to play all of these songs? They know the lyrics. They know all these things. And what do you do when you get a song you've never heard before or played before?
I knew you'd bait me into playing the piano at some point, Justin. So the truth of the piano is that it looks really difficult, and it can be. But from a piano bar standpoint, I said earlier that technique is great to have, but it's not the most important thing. It's really how you read the crowd, respond to the room, and then manage requests. And at its core, a piano is really 12 notes, just repeated over and over again. So once you understand that, you're like, well, there's 88 keys here, but really there's only 12 that I have to think about at a time. And then if you break down most pop music, it's really just chords. So you've got a bass note and the corresponding chord. So like one of the better known examples is the Flight of the Conchords maybe, or whatever the band is, the 4-chord song, right? So you can play so many songs with just those chords. Then you go to this idea of, I can either play the song verbatim, so like Piano Man. Or you can just play, it's 9 o'clock on... It's the same thing. It's just how much ornamentation, you use the word artist, which, thank you, artistry you put into it. So at the piano bar, what you'll find is a lot of times the piano player is just using these chord charts or lead sheets to play 80% of the songs. And then some that they're super comfortable with, they know inside and out, you'll hear the ornamentation. Also, the added advantage of having two players at a dueling piano bar is that one can play the block chords while the other plays ornamentation, up at the top. So how do you play songs you've never heard before? Sometimes you just have to own it. And you say, look, if I knew this, I'd play it gladly, but I don't. So I'm going to play it badly. And you hope that they're cool with that. Or what we've been able to do lately is with AirPods and YouTube, I can pretty much pull up the song, and as long as I know basically how it goes, so like I listen to it once through, and then I can put the song on and effectively play along to the song. So I've got an AirPod in one ear, and I'm just playing and singing, and I've got the lyrics in front of me. So iPads have been great for that, to be able to pull up anything on the fly. When I first started, excuse me, we had to build these binders basically full of lead sheets and lyrics to songs that we didn't yet know from memory. So the profession itself has come a long way. But in many ways, what looks really impressive and intense to somebody else is kind of like math and addition. It's just these block chords that we're putting together.
I love it. So it's funny. I tried to play the guitar when I was like 14. My dad bought me a bass guitar because I asked for a bass guitar because I was like, it's got 4 strings instead of 5, so it's probably easier to play. That was my mindset. I got it, took 3 lessons. I wasn't an expert, and I quit. But I've always been impressed with musicians and what they can do. And I have a friend who's a wildly wildly good jazz musician. And I've gone to jazz shows with him, and he can tell me right before everything's about to happen, like, oh, they're about to do a solo here, and then solo starts, and he goes, now they're all coming back together here. I'm like, how the heck do you know? It's truly an art form, and this is just another aspect of it, to be like, hey, I'm able to do this and modify it and still be able to entertain while I'm doing it. So I'll ask you one more fun question, then we'll get back to serious questions. What was, while you were in the piano bars, and even now, because you perform live on stage when you speak to corporations, what was your favorite song and least favorite song to perform?
Least favorite is very easy. It's Bohemian Rhapsody. It's a fun song for the crowd. It's absolute murder for the piano player, at least in my range. It's just so hard to do. I don't have a favorite song to play. That's not true. I love to play New York State of Mind. The intro to it is just like... It is just so much fun to play, the rhythmicality of it. But really, whatever the crowd would get hyped to. Like some nights, if I'm playing to a country crowd, it'd be Garth Brooks, Hank Williams Jr., whatever. Some nights it's a pop crowd, and they're just going nuts for Lady Gaga and Britney Spears songs and whatever. For me, it's all about the biofeedback from the audience. I mean, that's what makes it fun. Otherwise, I'm Harvey Fierstein is a Broadway actor who just won a sort of like special Tony Award. And he said at the end of his acceptance speech, for me, it's always about the audience, because without you, I would just be speaking to myself in a mirror in my bedroom. And that's kind of what it is for me too. Like, my favorite song to play is the one that makes you smile, the one that makes you happy, the one that makes you sing along, that creates a memory for you. Like, that's my special gift, is that I get to help people create memories. And sometimes I don't even know that they're creating a memory. And what's wild about the workplace and the piano bar and sort of where the two meet with respect to this topic, I had an opportunity to start donating time to a charity during COVID. And this charity paired musicians, entertainers, magicians, comedians with kids in children's hospitals. And we would be beamed in via Zoom to perform for them. And I rarely ever saw any of the kids because they're sort of just beaming us to a hospital TV. But on one performance, a little girl beamed in, or like connected in on her cell phone. And so she turned the camera on and made a request, and we sang together. And it was great to be able to get some biofeedback. But the truth is, it was just performing. It's what I just did right now. It's what I do all the time. That would go on to become a very special moment. I won't get into the details of it. It is a story that I share in my keynote, but that would go on to become a very special moment for that girl and her family. I had no idea until somebody called and told me. Mm. And here's where the rubber meets the road in terms of how these two relate. At work, when you do what you do, just by virtue of doing it, you have the opportunity to create memories for other people. And you might not ever know that it's been done. You might not ever hear about it. But the wild thing is, it's never special to us, or rarely is it special to us. That's the gift, is when we get to participate in something we know is special or we know is momentous. That is magical. But we create magical for other people every day. And so folks kind of say, oh, my job doesn't have meaning. I don't have any purpose in my job. You do. You just got to create it and find it. Like, it would be easy for me to say I was just performing for kids and it was just the thing I do. But I found this purpose, this meaning through the story of Lauren and her family. And so every day we have these opportunities to create magical moments. For me, that's what I got excited about. So yes, what's my favorite song? It's whatever one creates a moment for you that just, man, I can't believe you played that song, Greg. Awesome. If I made you happy, that makes me happy.
I love it. So I want to ask you a question that I ask every single person on the show. It's a two-part question. The first part is, what is your definition of success? And the second part is, what are 3 things you do every single day to ensure that success for yourself?
All right, I'll answer the second one first. So I make sure I do something physical. I've got 2 toddlers, so it's hard to actually get to the gym all the time. But whether it's just a couple of push-ups, get to do a Peloton workout, or I do something physical. Second thing is I do something that's just for me. And that could be as simple as just watching a YouTube video that has nothing to do with work, that just makes me smile, laugh, whatever. I always take time to do something for me. And I mentioned I have a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old. I always take time to do something with them. And again, it may not be big. If I'm traveling on the road, it may just be a quick FaceTime. But always those 3 things set me up for a successful day. My definition of success has changed. And I guess it's sort of one that a lot of people have, but it's being able to do what I want, when I want, with the people that are important to me. But as my kids are growing, that's also evolving to being able to share what I do with them. Because I have 2 very loving parents who worked very hard to support me and my sisters. Yet, I've got this memory. I've got this memory of my dad coming home, and sometimes before he left, and either saying, yeah, Daddy just got home from yucky work, or Daddy's got to go to yucky work. And I know he meant well by it. I don't fault him at all for this. But I think subconsciously that put in my brain this idea that work is yucky. I use the word irksome. Work is a chore. It's a boulder to be hefted up a mountain. And I think success for me would be teaching my girls that work is an opportunity to find a problem you're passionate about out in the world and help solve it. And that doesn't have to be yucky. It doesn't have to be irksome. It can actually be a beautiful mission. And so if I get to do anything with the work that I do in keynotes, books, and conversations like this, it's getting people to think a little bit different about work. That you're not going to be given a passion or given meaning in work. Your job is to go each day. If a company gives you a paycheck and a desk or a chair or a laptop or whatever, they're giving you access to their world. And then your job is to find something that's amiss in their world, a problem. And obviously, the more costly problems have more precious rewards. But find that problem and play a part in solving it or making it better. That's what I think business is. It's this art of solving problems profitably. Yeah. And so that's what I hope I can leave them with. I will feel successful, big picture, if I can get my girls to see the world as an opportunity for them to apply their skills to solve problems, and that's what work is. And then for me each day, it's if I get to do something physical, something fun, and something with my family.
I love it, man. So by the way, you're going to be episode 571 on the podcast. And that's the first time somebody ever.
Consistency, Justin. Congratulations.
Thank you. Over 9 years. It's been a fun journey for sure. But you're the first person out of all those episodes that ever flipped the answer to that question and answered the second part first. So there's a memorable moment for me because that's never happened before. And a lot of
Wow.
times, there's a lot of rehashing and so on and so forth. But that was the first time, man. So I appreciate that. So I want to ask you another question that I don't ask everybody, but I feel like you're going to give a fantastic answer. I want you to imagine you're now at the end of your life and everything you've created, the book, the keynotes, the music, everything that you've created no longer exists. And you can only be remembered for one sentence. What would you want that sentence to be?
We're gonna have to cut out this awkward pause while I think about this. That's a pretty weighty question to be asked. So no one, just to clarify, no one knows anything that I've done. So basically all of my work product, none of that is known. It's just this random human being that had a life and now
Got a
gets to
family
say,
who loved them and all the things, but you could boil everything down to one sentence because they can't go pick up the book. They can't go watch the keynote. They can't do any of that stuff. The apocalypse happened and it's been wiped off the face of the earth.
I believe the meaning of life is to decide what you want your life to mean and then go make it happen.
I love it. It's a great answer. Great answer. So I wrap up every single interview with the same question as well. But before we get there, how do people get more information from you? How can they hire you? How can they work with you? What's all the good stuff?
Yeah, man. All the major socials at Gregory Offner Jr. for Junior. So at Gregory Offner Jr. My website is gregoryoffner.com. Instagram DMs are probably the best way to get a hold of me if you don't have my cell phone. Although I think that's probably online too. Don't text me at 3 a.m. Yeah, I've got a book out, The Tip Jar Culture. That just got published. It's won a couple awards. I'm really proud of it. It talks a lot more about some of the stuff we've been conversing about today. And I think that's the answer to your question.
Yeah, perfect, man.
Okay.
So we'll link all that stuff down at the bottom of the show notes there. But like I
Cool.
said, I wrap up every single interview with the same question. Since the show is called The Growth Now Movement, that question is: in your life, what has been your biggest moment of growth?
Oh, without a doubt, losing my voice. I would not have been courageous enough to abandon the financial security of my day job without losing my voice. It was the world's best get out of jail free card because I thought when I made this transition into being a speaker and building this business, if it doesn't work, I'll go become Subway's best sandwich artist. I'll go, pump gas at Wawa in New Jersey. Like I will do whatever it takes to provide for my family. But I have the opportunity, this get out of jail, and it's terrible that I'm calling it that, right? Jail, this get out of jail free card to just leave a situation that a lot of people from the outside looking in thought, wow, that guy's really lucky to have this kind of job. And so I'm grateful, even though it was really difficult. I'm so grateful that the universe, God, whatever you believe in, gave me this gift and has allowed me to do so much with it already. And I hope there's so much more I get to do.
Awesome. Greg, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your journey with my audience, man. This has been a ton of fun. Keep doing what you're doing, dude. It's impressive.
Thanks, Justin. It's been a real pleasure getting to chat with you.